In a world full of colorful characters and larger-than-life personalities, it's not too far-fetched to think that wrestling would have its share of controversies. Whether it be wrestlers holding up the company for money, legitimately trying to hurt their opponent, or just out-and-out illegal activity, the world of professional wrestling has no shortage of crazy stories. There are so many crazy stories, in fact, that there's no way that we could fit them all onto this video. So if you go ahead and like this video and comment down below which we should follow up with in a part 2, we'd be happy to do that for you. This is Extreme League Wrestling, and these are our craziest wrestling controversies. TNA Victory Road, 2011. Any addict will tell you battling the demons of addiction is a difficult task. One's road to sobriety is always a difficult journey, and it has been especially a difficult journey for one Jeff Nero Hardy. And if Jeff is any example to go off by, we now know that addiction is not a linear path, with many peaks and valleys in one's recovery. The TNA Impact Zone saw this firsthand at 2011's Victory Road main event. During his entrance for his TNA World Heavyweight Championship match against Sting, it's very clear once Hardy is in full view that he is not in the right condition to wrestle. Featuring the X being thrown up by Brian Hebner, quickly Eric Bischoff came down to the ring to call an audible. As soon as the bell rang, the Stinger hit the Stinger Splash and shoot pinned Hardy for a quick 88-second main event. Understandably upset, the crowd began to chant Bull S-word at the two superstars, with Sting responding with how we were all feeling that night with a very loud "I agree." It was confirmed by Eric Bischoff later in 2021 that Jeff Hardy had in fact missed an 11 a.m. call time for the pay-per-view. Confirming in Gorilla that he was in fact inebriated, Bischoff decided to let him go out in order to just get the main event over as quickly as possible. While yes, upsetting for fans that both bought the pay-per-view and tickets to the event, most people criticized TNA for putting Jeff Hardy's well-being at risk like that. And if you grew up watching Jeff Hardy like we did here at Extreme League Wrestling, you know the man has had some incredible career highs while facing some unfortunate personal lows. And while we are both disgusted and horrified that Jeff Hardy would drive intoxicated in Florida this past week, we here at Extreme League Wrestling really do wish Jeff Hardy the best in his recovery. If you or someone you know is struggling with substance abuse, please contact the following resources. The Plane Ride from Hell. Dark Side of the Ring is a fantastic wrestling documentary series covering all things controversial in the wrestling world, including this. This episode lives so much in infamy that Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone have said that they will not return to the series, and even post-airing stopping a Ric Flair AEW debut. And while the Dark Side of the Ring episode could be an entry all on its own, we're mainly going to focus on the actual plane ride from hell. After the Insurrection pay-per-view in the United Kingdom, the WWE roster boarded a private plane, heading back to the States after the United Kingdom pay-per-view. After an exorbitant amount of time left on the tarmac, and with an open bar at their disposal, the WWE roster then began to get rowdy. Things then began to escalate while on the plane. Everything on this flight ranged from Goldust serenading his ex-wife through the loudspeaker of the plane, to Mr. Perfect and Brock Lesnar getting into a shoot fight and nearly popping over the plane door. But of course the most controversial part of the plane ride from hell has to be from one Nature Boy, with Ric Flair exposing himself to two of the female flight attendants and sexually assaulting them. After the flight, Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig was fired from WWE for the incident with Brock Lesnar, and so was the late great Scott Hall, who was unfortunately still battling with his sobriety at the time, and was too drunk to function on the plane. And for their parts, Goldust and Ric Flair were suspended from the company. Later on, both flight attendants ended up suing WWE, settling out of court. Prior to Vice's Dark Side of the Ring episode on the event, the whole event was unfortunately played for laughs in WWE lore and media. After airing, the Nature Boy's career took a gigantic hit, being pulled from everything WWE and AEW. Post-controversy, Ric Flair has been promoting his podcast, getting into Twitter fights over dumb things, and promoting his final wrestling match that is way overpriced. And honestly, if you want our opinion, we're good with a break from the Nature Boy for a very long while. Literally everything New Jack has done. New Jack is a rare breed of wrestler, and by rare breed, we mean he'll actually kill you. While yes, New Jack has had a very troubled life growing up, it is very hard to make an excuse for some of the crimes he's committed while standing in the ring with his opponents. Well, which is the worst to make our list? Well, honestly, you can take your pick. These incidences can range from the assault of Gypsy Joe, a 69-year-old professional wrestler who was no-selling some of New Jack's offense, so he just decided to go bat sugar honey iced tea on him. There's the Vic Grimes incident where he threw Vic Grimes from the top of a scaffolding, trying to, and I quote, literally drop him on his head and kill him. Or you could pick the most infamous example in the mass transit incident. Taking place at an ECW house show in November of 1996, The 17-year-old aspiring professional wrestler suffered multiple life-threatening injuries after New Jack bladed him too hard during their match. Perpetually violent and perpetually unsafe in the ring, it is easy to say that New Jack was a walking controversy in the professional wrestling world. The steroid trial. The world of wrestling between 1980 and 1990 had one thing in common: big, muscly men doing big, muscly men things. And the Hulkster promised us as long as we ate our vitamins and did good in school, we can be just as big as him, or the youth at the time believed. The truth of the matter was, steroids were rampant in the wrestling world during this time, with everyone being more juiced than Jamba. After the conviction of WWE doctor at the time, George Zaharian, the floodgates began to open, exposing the rampant steroid use inside of the WWF at the time. With steroid use so rampant, the doctors were handing these things out like Halloween candy. M&Ms, Snickers, anabolic steroids, all the same thing, right? Of course, this is all a giant no-no given that steroids became a controlled substance in 1991. But with net brace and all, somehow Vince McMahon and company were able to beat the charges. With the aforementioned doctor only getting 3 years in prison, he was able to practice medicine in Pennsylvania in 2010. Given the trial, we saw the removal of big muscly men like Hulk Hogan and Lex Luger from our TV screens. Could this mean WWE was moving from the muscly athletic men of before to a more slender realistic build? No, of course not. They went right back to it once everything got smoothed over. If you would love to dive more into this topic, I highly recommend the Dark Side of the Ring episode. The 2022 downfall of Vince McMahon. While this is still a developing story, we might just be seeing the downfall of Vince McMahon running WWE. So follow us because here's what's happened so far. On May 19th of 2022, it was reported that Stephanie McMahon would be stepping down from her role inside of WWE. Given her husband Triple H's recent cardiac event, this was understandable. Go home, spend some time with your family. Then it was reported on June 15th by the Wall Street Journal that Vince McMahon had reportedly paid $3 million in hush money that he had paid to a woman he had an affair with who worked as a paralegal in WWE. An affair that not only Vince McMahon was involved in, but head of talent relations Johnny Laurinaitis, who also, fun fact, is married to the Bella Twins' mother and is Bryan Danielson's father-in-law. So, here's where this gets interesting. The paralegal in question was paid a salary of $100,000 a year. That salary during her tenure with the company was bumped up to $200,000 a year. Mind you, the company did release a statement saying that yes, the affair did happen, and that it was a consensually sexual relationship. The paralegal in question then left the company in January of 2022. In order to get her to, quote, shut up, Jeremy McDevitt, Vince McMahon's personal attorney, put together a $3 million NDA settlement. This agreement saw her get $1 million up front, $2 million over the next few years, and bars her from talking about her relationship with Vince McMahon and Johnny Laurinaitis. Vince McMahon's personal attorney ensures that none of the money paid to the woman was from WWE as a company, solely from Vince McMahon's own bank account. This is important because using something like this to pay off an NDA settlement is a big corporate no-no. But this is where we have to question the $100,000 raise this woman received after her relationship with Vince McMahon began. From February to March of 2022, it is reported that a friend of this paralegal was emailing members of the board discussing what had happened. This then prompted the WWE Board of Directors to open an investigation with a private law firm. This is also around the time Stephanie McMahon decided to leave for personal reasons. This then leads to Stephanie McMahon becoming chairman of the board for WWE, ousting Vince McMahon, and for the first time in 42 years, Vince McMahon is no longer running WWE. He's no longer the CEO. He, yes, is still going to be in charge of creative, but for all intents and purposes, Vince McMahon is no longer running WWE. And honestly, I don't think it's hyperbole to say this, that we all thought Vince McMahon would die before somebody else ran WWE, but yet, here we are. And then to add on to that, there's also an internal investigation on Kevin Dunn and other people within WWE, accusing them of insider trading prior to all this news breaking. This might be a really small niche, but if you're a fan of Secession and pro wrestling, you're probably having a ball right now. And then on the morning of Friday, June 7th, it was announced that Vince McMahon would be opening Friday Night SmackDown. This opens a gigantic can of worms for WWE. Vince has been adamantly cheered in the PG era. Now, how will people react to him? Well, that didn't really matter because Vince just came out, said, "It's great to be here. It's great to represent WWE, and welcome to SmackDown. Oh, Vince, I would love to say never change, but there's a lot about you I don't like, so please change eventually. With Vince McMahon no longer being CEO and chairman of the board of WWE for the first time in the company's existence, this is shaping up to be one of the biggest wrestling controversies that we have ever seen. And until we get a satisfying conclusion, I'll be on Twitter, waiting for the next update. Thank you guys so much for watching Extreme League Wrestling. What are some of your favorite wrestling controversies? Let me know down in the comments. Share this with your friends. Let me know what I should cover in the next episode of this series. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.